Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
You have heard of vampires that stalk the night, creatures of pale skin and sharp fangs hiding in plain sight. But what if I told you there is a different kind of vampire, one that does not rise from a coffin or burn in the sun, one that fits in the palm of your hand? This creature does not chase its prey through foggy streets. Instead, it waits, silent and patient, displayed behind glass like a relic. And yet, those who own it swear it is not dead. They say it feeds while you sleep. In the dark corners of Indonesia, especially on the island of Java, a legend has been hiding in plain sight for decades. It is called the Jenglot, and you can walk into a museum right now and see one. But what you will be staring at is not a statue or a carving. It is a mummified body, no taller than a pencil case, with wild matted hair, long curved claws, and two prominent fangs protruding from a shrunken mouth. Step closer. Look at its face. Does it look peaceful to you, or does it look like something that is only pretending to be dead? The Jenglot does not decompose, it does not rot. It has been kept for years, sometimes decades, inside simple glass cases, and yet its skin remains dark and leathery. Its nails continue to grow, and its hair, witnesses claim, changes position over time. This is not a legend you hear from a grandfather by a campfire. This is an object you can touch, a physical thing that exists in the real world, sir. The question that haunts every researcher, every collector, and every skeptic is simple. Is the Jenglot a real supernatural entity, a tiny vampire that survives on life force and blood? Or is it an elaborate hoax, a doll made from animal parts and human remains, dressed in folklore to frighten tourists and sell tickets? You are about to find out why this mystery has never been truly solved. Let us begin in the 1990s, when the Jenglot first erupted into the Indonesian public consciousness. A man named Suwandi from East Java claimed to have found several of these creatures buried underground, near a mysterious site. He said they were not dead, just dormant, waiting to be awakened. When the news spread, people lined up to see them. They touched the glass. Some prayed, others fainted, claiming they felt a sudden drain of energy. And this is where the story takes its first dark turn, because a Jenglot does not ask for your belief. It asks for blood. According to those who care for these entities, a Jenglot must be fed regularly. The offering is simple: a few drops of animal blood, usually chicken or goat, placed near its body. Sometimes, in the most disturbing accounts, human blood is preferred. The ritual does not require ceremony. You just leave the blood close to the creature, and by morning it is gone. Not evaporated, not spilled, gone. The Jenglot is said to drink through its fangs, absorbing the liquid into its tiny, leathery body. Think about that for a moment. You are looking at a 10-centimeter mummy with no visible digestive system. And yet, people who claim to feed them say the blood disappears with no trace. Would you test this yourself? The appearance of a Jenglot is unsettling in a way that is difficult to describe. Its body is humanoid but wrong. The skin is dark brown or black, stretched tight over visible bone. Its arms are long in proportion to its torso, ending in three-fingered hands with nails that curve like talons. The mouth is frozen open, showing two sharp upper canines. And the eyes, if you can call them eyes, are hollow pits that seem to follow you when you move. Some Jenglots have been found wearing tiny clothes. Others have needles or small metal objects embedded in their bodies. This has led many to believe that they are not natural creatures at all, but the result of black magic rituals gone wrong. One of the most popular theories in Javanese folklore is that a Jenglot is actually a failed witch. In this tradition, a person practicing dark magic who dies before completing their transformation becomes something incomplete, neither fully human nor fully demon. Their soul is trapped in a shrunken, immortal body that must consume blood to maintain its miserable existence. Another theory is even darker. Some believe that Jenglots are created intentionally through a forbidden ritual that involves a human sacrifice, a series of chants, and the burial of the body in special soil for years. When unearthed, the body has shrunk, hardened, and transformed into a Jenglot, now bound to serve its creator. Do you see the pattern here? Every origin story points to one inevitable conclusion. The Jenglot was once alive in a way we understand, and then it became something else. But let us step away from folklore for a moment and look at the evidence. Because unlike Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, the Jenglot exists as a physical object. You can go to the Karaten Surakarta Museum in Solo, Indonesia, and see a collection of them displayed like artifacts. They are kept in glass boxes with offerings of flowers and sometimes small cups of liquid. They are real. The question is not whether they exist as objects. The question is what they are made of. Scientists have attempted to analyze Jenglots on several occasions. And here is where the mystery deepens instead of ending. Some examinations have concluded that certain Jenglots are constructed from animal remains, monkey fetuses perhaps, or birds, modified with human hair and artificial fangs. But other samples have been more difficult to classify. The tissue does not match any known animal. The bone structure is ambiguous. The DNA analysis returns inconclusive or degraded results. In other words, science has not been able to give a final verdict. Some Jenglots are obvious fakes, others are not. So you are left with a choice. Do you believe that all Jenglots are clever forgeries made to exploit a superstitious public? Or do you accept the possibility that something genuinely unknown exists inside those glass cases? Something that does not fit into the categories of biology we understand? Consider this. Many Jenglot owners report the same phenomenon. If the creature is not fed regularly, strange things begin to happen in the house. Objects move at night. The owner suffers from nightmares and extreme fatigue. Some claim to have woken up with small puncture marks on their arms or neck. Are these psychosomatic reactions, the power of suggestion turning fear into physical symptoms, or are they evidence that a neglected Jenglot will find its own source of nourishment? D. Indonesian government has never officially recognized Jenglots as supernatural beings, but they have also never banned their display or sale. You can buy a Jenglot online, right now, from certain collectors. Prices range from a few hundred to several $1,000s. Authenticity is always claimed but never proven. And this is where the story pulls you in. Because even if 99% of Jenglots are fakes, what about the 1%? What about the specimens that have been examined multiple times and still resist classification? We are about to go deeper. Because the Jenglot is not just a curiosity, it is a mirror. It reflects our deepest fear, the fear that death is not the end, that something can continue to exist, to need, to feed, long after its body should have turned to dust. You are still here. That means part of you wants to know the truth. Let me ask you something directly. If you found a small, mummified creature in your backyard tonight, with fangs and claws and hair that looked too human, what would you do? Would you call a scientist, a priest, or would you try to feed it? The people of Java have been answering this question for generations, and their answer is almost always the same. You respect the Jenglot. You do not destroy it. You do not mock it. You may keep it, or you may give it away. But you never disrespect it, because a Jenglot, they say, remembers. One of the most famous Jenglots ever recorded belonged to a collector named Ki Ajang Pakusari. He kept his creature in a special shrine and fed it every Friday night with a single drop of his own blood. He claimed the Jenglot spoke to him in dreams, revealing hidden knowledge about the future. People came from distant villages to ask the Jenglot for advice. And when Kiajang died, the Jenglot was passed to his son, who refused to continue the feeding ritual. According to family accounts, the son fell into a months-long depression, lost his business, and reported seeing a small dark figure crawling on his bedroom ceiling at night. He eventually returned the Jenglot to a museum, and his fortune recovered. Coincidence or consequence? Stories like this surround almost every authentic Jenglot. They create a pattern of cause and effect that is impossible to verify but difficult to dismiss entirely. You are dealing with a legend that has real-world effects on the behavior of people. Whether the creature is alive or not, the belief in its power changes how people act. And in the world of the paranormal, perception is often indistinguishable from reality. Let us examine the physical evidence more closely. Several Jenglots have been subjected to X-ray analysis. The results are fascinating and frustrating in equal measure. One X-ray revealed what appeared to be a complete skeletal structure, including a ribcage, a spine, and a skull with teeth. But the proportions were off. The limbs were too long for the torso. The skull was too flat. The examiner concluded it was not a human fetus, nor a known animal. The report simply said, "Unidentified." Another Jenglot was cut open by a curious journalist in the 2000s. Inside he found what looked like dried tissue and bone, but no internal organs. No heart, no lungs, no stomach. Just a hollow cavity filled with a dark fibrous material. When exposed to air, the material began to crumble into dust. The journalist later claimed he suffered from headaches for a month after the procedure. What does that tell us? Not much, except that even direct examination does not always produce clear answers. Jenglots degrade when tampered with. They do not cooperate with the scientific method. Either they are exceptionally well-made forgeries designed to resist analysis, or they are something else entirely. And here is a detail that might keep you awake tonight. Some Jenglot owners report that their creatures emit a faint odor, something like old leather and incense. But when they try to record the scent or analyze it chemically, they cannot pinpoint its source. The smell comes and goes without explanation. It intensifies at night, especially during the hours between midnight and 3 in the morning. Now consider the global context. Every culture has its version of the small, malevolent being. In Europe, you have the homunculus, a miniature human created through alchemy. In South America, you have the dunde, a goblin-like creature that haunts children. In Japan, you have the kudagitsun, a small fox spirit kept in jars. The Jenglot fits perfectly into this universal archetype, the tiny, powerful creature that lives among us, unnoticed, dependent on us for survival, but dangerous if ignored. Carl Jung would call this a collective unconscious symbol. Paranormal researchers would call it evidence of a real phenomenon manifesting differently across cultures. Skeptics would call it a coincidence born from shared human fears. But you are not here for easy answers. You are here because the Jenglot challenges something fundamental. It challenges the boundary between object and being, between artifact and organism. Let us talk about the feeding ritual in more detail, because this is where the horror becomes immediate. To feed a Jenglot, you do not need an altar or an incantation. You simply place a small bowl of fresh animal blood near its display case, sometimes directly next to its mouth. You leave the room. When you return, the blood is gone. Not dried up, not congealed, but completely absent, as if poured down a drain. Skeptics say the blood evaporates or is absorbed by the porous material of the Jenglot's body. But evaporation leaves residue, and tests have shown that the bowls used in these rituals contain no trace of dried blood after the feeding. It is as if the liquid vanished into another dimension. One Indonesian journalist tasked with debunking a famous Jenglot in Yogyakarta, performed a controlled test. He placed the Jenglot in a sealed glass container with a small amount of chicken blood. The container was locked and monitored by multiple witnesses. After 6 hours, the blood was still there. The journalist declared the Jenglot a fraud. But the owner of the Jenglot explained that the creature only feeds when it is not being watched, and only when the feeder has established a relationship of respect. The journalist, he said, was an unbeliever. And the Jenglot does not feed for unbelievers. This is the core of the problem. The Jenglot's behavior is calibrated to avoid proof. It operates entirely within the gaps of observation. You cannot capture it, because it is already captive. You cannot study it properly, because it refuses to perform under laboratory conditions. It is, if real, the perfect supernatural entity. It never has to prove itself. And yet, the fear it generates is real. The nightmares reported by owners are real. The physical symptoms of fatigue, of anxiety, of a persistent feeling of being watched, those are documented phenomena. Whether caused by a tiny vampire or by the human mind's incredible capacity for suggestion. The effect on the believer is identical. This is what makes the Jenglot so effective as a mystery. It does not need to be alive to be terrifying. It only needs people to believe it is alive. And once you believe, your own mind becomes the prison. Every sound becomes a footstep. Every drop of spilled liquid becomes an offering. Every shadow in the corner of your eye becomes a small, crouching figure with fangs and wild hair. Think about your own home right now. Look at the small spaces, the corners, the shelves where tiny objects sit. What if something among them was not just an ornament? What if something among them required something from you? Now you understand why the Jenglot has survived as a legend for so long. Not because it is powerful, but because it is intimate. It lives in your house. It breathes your air. It waits for you to forget to feed it, just once, to see what happens. The Indonesian museums that display Jenglots do not take sides. They present them as cultural artifacts, examples of local folklore and traditional beliefs. But the signs next to the glass cases often include warnings. Not official warnings, but small notes added by curators or former owners. Do not open the case. Do not touch feed every Friday. These are not the instructions of a science exhibit. These are the instructions of a shrine. And you, sitting there in the dark, watching this video, you have just become part of the legend. Because you now know the Jenglot exists. You have seen its face. You have heard its story. And according to Javanese tradition, knowing about a Jenglot is the first step toward attracting one. Do not look behind you. Do not check the corners of your room. And if you notice a small shadow that was not there before, a shadow that seems to have hair and claws and very sharp teeth, simply remember to be polite. Leave a drop of something red on your windowsill tonight, just in case.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.